You're listening to Missing Persons, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, DNA ID, Zodiac Speaking, Scene of the Crime,
Beyond Bizarre True Crime,
Citizen Detective,
and Campus Killings.
All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss a missing persons case on this podcast, please be sure to visit missingpersonspodcast.net. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
If you'd like to support Missing Persons and get VIP access to things like ad-free listening, early preview episodes, and bonus content of not only this show, but for every other podcast on the AbJack network of indie podcasts, consider subscribing to the show with an AbJack Insider subscription through Apple Podcast. For only $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, you'll unlock a variety of listener benefits, and you'll be supporting the show in the process. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together, we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to search for their missing loved ones. In some cases, even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us. So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing. Charles Robert Steele, who goes by Bobby, has been missing since April 11th, 2023. Bobby grew up in Delaware with his older sister Kelly Steele Canning, who is our guest today. Kelly tells us that as a youth, Bobby was popular, charismatic, and athletic. But an accident derailed his high school baseball career and introduced him to prescription medications. A large financial award from a lawsuit relating to the accident resulted in Bobby, at age 17, living a wealthy lifestyle with cars, jewelry, and drugs. But he spent all the money, and in his 20s, Bobby developed a serious drug habit that got him into trouble. He ended up serving some prison time for burglaries in Pennsylvania. When he was released, he moved in with his mom, but he got in trouble again and was arrested in Baltimore. After he was released from prison this time, for a time, Bobby was able to clean himself up and get jobs working construction and as a contractor. In 2017, Bobby began dating a woman named Leah, whom the family maintains was a negative influence on Bobby. He ended up spending time in Elkton, Maryland as a result of this relationship, and lived for a time as a homeless person in an encampment in the woods. During this time, he fell out of touch with his family. Kelly tried to file a missing persons report with the Elkton, Maryland police regarding Bobby, but Elkton PD was familiar with Bobby, whom they referred to as the nicest homeless guy they knew. He wasn't missing, but had chosen the lifestyle he was living. So Kelly withdrew her report. Bobby eventually began a course of medication with oversight from a medical professional designed to help addicts beat their addiction. Kelly said that when he disappeared, he'd been clean for about 5 years and had never missed a weekly doctor's appointment. Eventually, Bobby moved into a homeless shelter, started taking classes, and regained contact with his family. By early 2023, Bobby indicated to his sister that he was trying to break things off with Leah. On March 20th, he left a voicemail on Kelly's phone saying he had broken things off with Leah and he had nowhere to go, so he was living on the street. He said he was afraid of something happening to him. He made an odd request. Could she video call with him every few days or so she could check in that he was okay? But Kelly was leaving for an overseas trip, so this wasn't realistic. Bobby said he would be okay while she was gone. When Kelly returned from her trip, she messaged Bobby and they made a plan for her to pick him up in Elkton. He wanted to get away from things with Leah and was clearly afraid of something. But on April 5th, the day she was supposed to pick him up, she couldn't get in touch with him. On April 7th, he contacted her and told her that his ex-girlfriend Leah had smashed his phone to prevent Kelly from picking him up. He had gotten a new phone and used it to contact Kelly via Facebook. She asked if he wanted to come stay with her, and he said yes. Then he went silent until the 9th at 6:34 p.m. Easter, when he called and he sounded frightened. He said some things about they target people like me, people from other states, people who don't have families who will notice they are missing. Kelly thinks this was why he was so eager to make it appear that his family was calling him on the regular. On that Easter Sunday, she went and picked him up and brought him to her family's home in Claymont, Delaware. He brought nothing with him except a backpack, which Kelly verified did not contain any drugs. Bobby told her he had been awarded a subsidized housing voucher, so he would have a permanent place to live in Cecil County. He was nervous about this, saying he didn't want to return to Elkton. But he agreed to go forward with the housing plan and met with a counselor to discuss the situation. But on Tuesday afternoon, April 11th, at 5:58 p.m., Bobby grabbed his bag with some of his stuff and left Kelly's house. Kelly had the impression that he planned to return. He left some of his things and was wearing a t-shirt, not clothing appropriate for Delaware in April. Several hours later, Kelly received a strange phone call from her brother. In hindsight, she concluded that he was talking to her with someone else listening on his end, and was deliberately saying things he wanted her to pick up. He mentioned that they were on a video call, so she could see where he was when they weren't on a video call at all. And he said he was going to meet my boy Courtney on Market Street, and said something about Kelly being done effing with him. But he didn't use her name. Kelly doesn't know where he was calling from. She hung up, and when she tried to message him a few hours later, there was no response. There has never been a response. Bobby has never been seen or heard from again. Kelly has been very frustrated with the lack of cooperation she has received from law enforcement. She tried to file a missing persons report with the Delaware State Police, but they referred her to another agency in Newcastle. That agency told her they could not get involved because Bobby was an adult and had left of his own free will, something he'd done before, and he didn't have a qualifying diagnosis or condition that would endanger him. Finally, Elkton, Maryland police took a report and entered the case into NCIC. But without evidence that Bobby actually returned to Elkton, their investigation was limited. A detective was assigned to the case, and she told Kelly that she had issued some subpoenas to gather information about Bobby's medical records and appointments, his financial history and transactions, his email accounts, and his Text Now account. Bobby's phone did not have cellular capabilities but was Wi-Fi only, so it did not provide location information unless it was linked to a Wi-Fi network. The email-related location information showed only that Bobby had spent time in inner-city Philadelphia, near City Hall and Market Street, before Kelly picked him up. But unfortunately, the detective told Kelly that they have no last known location for Bobby since he left Kelly's house, whether in Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, or anywhere else. He has conducted no financial transactions, and his phone and email accounts also failed to provide any investigative leads. However, the detective said she would arrange for Bobby's DNA, collected from a toothbrush Kelly submitted, to be entered into NamUs, a missing and unidentified persons database. In a blow to Bobby's case, this Elkton PD detective has been promoted and reassigned to patrol. As of now, Bobby's case is not being investigated by the EPD or anyone else. However, Kelly believes that there is a possibility that Bobby's case is related to other missing persons cases involving the homeless and mentally ill population in the area, and that Newcastle County PD may be considering opening an investigation into Bobby's disappearance. Bobby Steele was 44 when he vanished, but he has had a birthday since then. Now 45, Bobby is approximately 5'11" and 180 pounds, and has brown hair, hazel eyes, a tattoo on his neck that reads Bobby Steele, and multiple tattoos on his arms. He was last seen wearing a dark blue t-shirt, dark blue jeans, and dark-colored shoes, and carrying a black backpack. Mike Morford sat down to talk with Kelly Steele Canning, Bobby Steele's sister, about his case. That conversation is coming up after a word from our sponsors.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you for coming on Missing Persons to discuss your brother Bobby's case with us.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know you've been on social media. I know you've been doing some TikTok stuff, just trying to generate publicity for your brother Bobby's case. Desperate to find out answers and figure out what happened here. But and then you talked a little bit too, at least in one of your TikTok videos I watched, about maybe this is part of something bigger going on. And before we dissect all that and get into what happened, what we know, what we don't know, can you just tell listeners a little bit about Bobby himself and what he's like?
Bobby was one of those people that everybody just likes. I mean, from the moment that I can remember him walking around as an infant, everybody just loved him. And I was the big sister. I was not the nicest one. He could play sport. He excelled at it. Friend groups, everybody wanted to be in his. And he just had that personality. So where Bobby and I both grew up in not a great environment. I was the older sister. So, I kind of took the brunt of that while he thought he was having a really good time running the streets at 5 and 6 and 7 years old. But he made friends and everywhere he went. He was a great baseball player when he was younger. I mean, everyone said he'd go to the major leagues, this and that. And he was really cocky about it, but he was really good. And then when he was 13, he got burned severely. It was an accident at a friend's house. They were building some kid, and the kid lit the gas can on fire, threw it over Bobby's head. The fire poured out over it and burned him on, I'd say 35-40% of his body. So he was in Chester Burn Center for about 6 weeks, just trying to recover. And it was unfortunately his pitching arm and then his left leg. So his baseball was affected. His self-esteem was affected because the burns were so severe and just the recovery time. So that charismatic person that he was earlier with not a care in the world, it just kind of all went away when he looked in the mirror and he saw these scars and he couldn't do what he excelled at. And you take that much time off school, you kind of lose focus of your friend groups because you're in the hospital for 6 weeks. It's not like they could come visit. So when he got out of the hospital and went into recovery at home, things kind of shifted a little bit because of, I think, the depression he was feeling and the being on morphine for 6 straight weeks on a morphine pump when you're in Chester Burn Center. You come home and you have, I don't know, whatever, Percocets or whatever they gave him for a very short period of time. So I don't think his body ever really adapted. And unfortunately, that was about the time that in the suburbs of America, people started taking their parents' painkillers and their grandmother's painkillers, and it escalated pretty quickly with the help of some not great people to more severe drugs. So that's kind of where Bobby's life started to fall a little bit off. But again, still the most charismatic, person. People loved him, made so many friends. But that became that ghost, that thing that haunted him for the rest of his life, that accident. As he grew up, as he got into his teenage years, he got a lot of money from a lawsuit. And that made him even more attractive to friend groups because he had the fancy cars and the money and rent the houses at the beach for the weekend. And so that he attracted more and more and more. And his group of people got really humongous that wanted to be around him. But they were also involved in drugs and things like that. He has a few real friends that still are really involved in this search for him now. But that was the highlight of his life. And he wasn't even 20 yet. The money faded, the drug addiction grew, and that just leads to a disaster. He made a really, really stupid mistake, broke into a house. Didn't steal anything, actually. I think his fingerprint was on a CD, but it was in PA. We live in Delaware. And he just was a little cocky. The PA did not like him. They were done with him. They tried him. They convicted him of burglary. And he spent time in Chester County Prison, got out, was on house arrest, couldn't do it. Went back to jail. It was a back and forth thing for a very long time. He was on parole, but he was in Delaware doing well. But it was just he was locked into Pennsylvania as far as that. This is early 20s. He moved to Delaware with my mom. Moved back to Delaware. Was doing pretty well. Had a job, but just any little thing, anything that could happen to Bobby would happen. He'd be in the wrong place at the wrong time for real. And so he'd get back in trouble. So he got arrested in Delaware. I don't even know what for, something minor. So at one point in time, he was on probation in Delaware, parole in Pennsylvania, and he just felt like he couldn't escape. And my mom I love my mom to death when she was alive, but she really just facilitated that kind of behavior. And I'm sure you hear that a lot when you hear about like addiction and things like that. A lot of times it's the parents that just, they don't give the right support. They don't know what kind of support to give. And so they give what they can give. And unfortunately it wasn't what Bobby needed. So he got, he did another stupid thing, got arrested in Baltimore for like, I don't even know, driving a car without tags. And that was like the last straw for my mom because she was stressed about it, very stressed. So I called Pennsylvania and I called Delaware and I was like, somebody needs to get this kid because he needs help. He needs to get off of his drugs. He needs the support of the prison system. And my mom needs to like be able to have a life.
Did you feel at that point that the best thing for him was to get him maybe where he's locked up for a while so he can get off of that stuff and sort of reset himself?
100%, because like I said, this is the support that he had on the side of like at home and like with his friend group. That's unfortunately not, for the most part, the type of support that's going to be able to like really help you find a better life and find a better way. And he was really just, he needed that. He needed that support he got in prison. He needed to be there. He needed to be held accountable at that point in time. And it was the best thing for him, honestly, because he had to take accountability. And that's one thing he did learn when he was there, which is what he shared with me later. You know, I know now, like after spending that much time, for something so silly, but he's like, I wasn't responsible for anything. I didn't hold myself accountable to anything before. And then, you know, you have to, that's how you survive. So I thought so when I did it, and I will never like falter from how I feel about that. That was the best thing for him at that time.
So he's obviously had these struggles. You're being forthright with that. And unfortunately, that is a very common problem. I have a lot of guests on who have gone through the same thing. It's prevalent in our society, unfortunately. But he was, you know, living on his own. Was he sort of on the right track or getting any better, you know, as far as things were going right before he went missing?
Okay, so there's a big space there. So when he got out and got finished with all that, he was thriving. This is early, like 2014, 15, 16. He was doing really well. I partnered with people I don't really know. Some of the details kind of intertwine with this investigation. So I like have to leave him kind of over here, but he was working and he was building like a foundation for himself. He learned a lot of skills like construction and like contracting skills. And then he met the person who I'm sure you heard me talk about, his ex-girlfriend. And it's about that moment on in 2017, summer 2017, that he fell off the face of the earth for the first time. It's like it almost seems like she took over his like Facebook, his electronics, everything that he had before that was in his name and he commented on, he communicated through, was just, he didn't communicate through anymore. So nobody really knows between about 2018 and end of 2017 to end of 2018, he just kind of disappeared. And
When you say disappeared, do you mean you didn't hear from him whatsoever? Wow.
I actually, because again, I'm his older sister, and you know, I want the best for him in life. When he was doing things I didn't agree with, I said absolutely not. Like, I'm always here for you, but I am not. You can't bring that here. Like, I have life. I have a kid. I have a family. I have to take care of. So when he was good, he was always welcome in my world. But when he was doing that kind of stuff, he wouldn't have contacted me anyway. So that wasn't out of character. But he had a whole network of people that he would contact for whether it be that he worked with or that he had doctor's appointments that they helped him get to, or just that he talked to. He didn't talk to any of them. They're the ones that reached out to me and said, "Hey, have you heard from Bobby?" No one's seen him in months. So that was 2018 when he went missing the first time. He reappeared in 2019. And I don't think he ever really got his life together. I think he was in the woods in Elkton for the majority of that time. But in 2023, when I picked him up and I brought him back to my house, he was on the right path. That was the day he had been working for over a year. He had gone back to school in Cecil County and then stopped, but his plan was to go back. But he got a lifetime housing voucher. And I kid you not when I say lifetime, because I didn't believe it either. I wouldn't have believed it if I wasn't standing there, for a new program in Cecil County that provides lifetime housing vouchers to like give you part of your rent or whatever for people experiencing depression due to homelessness. He was one of I believe the first 3 people that were granted this voucher. And it happened that day on April 11th with myself and his counselor from the homeless shelter, Lou, standing in the health services department. and the Cecil County social department. We went to 3 different places. He got it emailed and in hand, like that it was done. So, and he had been
So
fighting for a year.
he's
It was a
he's
good day.
excited about that. It sounded like then, yeah.
A good day. He was going to have like a home guaranteed to live in for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
The first time ever. So he was definitely on the path to escaping all the bad.
So with that good news, though, correct me if I'm wrong, he had just broken up with this girlfriend of his, and is that the time you heard back from him right before this happened, that he's contacts you out of the blue, and what, when he did contact you finally after so long, what did he have to say?
So there was contact scattered throughout from, from 20, well, forever. But each year that went by, I was in contact with him a little bit here and there. Sometimes he would be really like positive and sometimes not. But we had been in contact for most of 2023 back and forth, even the end of 2022. Just 2022, he posted that he was freezing and homeless for one night. Like, because you have to keep in mind, those two were off and on all the time. So he would reach out when they were having a bad day to me and all the rest of his friends, and family. But then he'd go like MIA again. But he always was on Facebook. That is one thing that was consistent, whether he was communicating with me or anybody else or just putting his business out there. He was on Facebook consistently throughout 2022 and 2023. So you always knew where he was. Like, you want to know where Bobby was, just go onto one of his Facebook accounts and you can find him. But he was completely done with that person. He had been trying to leave her for months. And have me come and get him or help him. And it just took until April 9th she smashed his phone. She took his phone. She hit him in the head with a log. It was a lot. When she took his phone, then he couldn't contact me. I was supposed to go pick him up that day. It took 2 more days until Easter before he got another phone and somebody, let him use their Wi-Fi, like password or Wi-Fi number hotspot, I guess, connected to their Wi-Fi because he didn't have a phone plan. It was just he would connect to wherever on a phone to call or Facebook message me. So Easter, April 11th, so I picked him up. But he definitely had a plan, and it was never to go back to that.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at that time when he did contact you and talked about coming to Cecil County, Maryland, was he talking a little bit about being worried about someone or people, or can you explain a little bit about that?
I mean, I can read the whole thing to you if you want. At some point in time in this podcast, we can go back to it if you want, so I can find
Yeah,
it.
please do.
Yeah, he was. So if you edit this part out like afterwards, because I'm just gonna try and like explain what I'll read to you. He was terrified. He was terrified when I looked for him in 2019. When I went to the 2018, 2019, when I finally found out the name of this girl and reached out to her friends, her family, trying to find out if she was anywhere to be found. And I found out that they were in Elkton. I went right to the Elkton Police Department in 2019, late 2018. And I tried to file a missing persons report. And the officers there said, "Oh no, we know Bobby. He's like the nicest homeless person. We take care of the homeless community here in Elkton. As a matter of fact, other cities bus us their homeless people because we have such a great program." They're like, "He's the most clean cut, well-spoken homeless person ever." As a matter of fact, we talked to him yesterday. And I'm like, I'm sitting there with my mouth open, like, okay, my brother's in jail, but he's always been fancy. He never lived in the woods. We didn't go camping. He didn't want to be, he had too many people in Delaware to just decide I'm just going to be the happiest homeless person that's ever existed for absolutely no reason. So when I heard that, I was like, okay. Like, I was shocked. I cried, but I went home and I said, if that's his choice and these police officers are saying he's healthy, he's fine, he's great, who am I, hasn't seen him in all these years, to question his decision? Like, I'm here if you need me, but so I let him be. In 2019 as the happiest homeless person like ever. But in 2023, things had gone downhill really a lot. He sent me a message on March 20th. I was sitting in the airport with my husband and we were on our way to Ireland. And he sent a message through my Facebook about an hour before I was supposed to get on the plane. But it was so, I'm sorry, back to 2019. In 2019, when I finally did talk to him, in 2020, when he resurfaced, I said, "I'm worried about you. This isn't who you are. This isn't what you do. Why are you in the woods? Why are you homeless?" And I feel like he just skipped around the answer. He had no answer. Leah was lingering in the background. That's the girlfriend, like listening to everything that we were saying. And I said, I just had a really bad feeling when I went to the police department. I had a feeling that they were just too chipper and happy about how great the homeless life is. And they wouldn't tell me exactly where you were. They wouldn't go and get you. And they wouldn't give me any contact information for you. They just said, well, let him know. I said, so Bobby, I'm really concerned. I said that in 2020. And so in 2023, this is what he said to me, March 20, 2023. Keep in mind, he disappeared April 11th, 2023. So this is less than a month before he disappeared off the face of the earth. He's, Kelly, will you please give me a call when you get a chance? It's kind of urgent. I know that you're very busy and I respect that. It's just, I broke up with Leah today and it's finished. Also, I'm in between places to live at the moment, so I'm on the street literally. Please understand that I'm not asking you for money or anything else. I'm a grown man and I'm currently waiting for paperwork, basically for a place of my own, which will be subsidized. So I will take care of all that. What I am asking you to do is to simply call me on a messenger video call or whichever app you use, let me know. Like every couple of days for a quick call in order for you to acknowledge I'm alive and well. Remember when you were trying to find me? You thought something maybe happened to me or didn't sit right with you. I think you were absolutely right. And I think there may be a few more people involved and a little more to it, but I don't care to figure any of it out. I just need to make sure people know that I have family that will look for me if I disappear. That in itself should be sufficient because I'm sure the people without that and from another state and with my kind of past are exactly who they target. No need for anyone to panic, but Kelly, please do this for me if you are able. I love you, sis. I always have and always will, even though I was a POS most of my life. I'm not one now. Please understand, I'm not playing around or anything. So if you are not able to video call me for a minute or two every couple of days for a minute or so, he says in all caps, please let me know so I can at least try to find another way to get out of Maryland. And I was like, okay, I read that. And he's like, I know it's a long message, but please read. I read it, but I was on my way to Ireland and like, I didn't take it well, now I take it way more seriously than I took it then. But you read it and you think, what can I possibly do? I don't know what to do. So I said, I'm getting ready to board a flight to Ireland for 8 days. If it is that serious, I can ask Colin, that's my son. I can send him a message to ask him to do it or one of our aunts. Please let me know. And he said, I'm cool, Cal, thanks, and have a safe flight. And I don't know why he did, other than maybe didn't want to involve his nephew because, that's kind of embarrassing. But he also didn't really have any connection with our family. So I don't know if that's why he said no, but I got on my plane and I left. So April 1st, I said, I'm home. I'm ready to help. Like, you figure your life out. Stop messing around. Be real if you want out of that life that you live. That was April 1st, 2023. He responded on April 5th. I'm cool, sis. For real. Thank you, though. I love you. Sorry to get you worried. Seriously. And I said, I'm in Richmond for training till tomorrow afternoon. Let me know if you'd like to have dinner with me on my way home tomorrow. He said, I'd love that, Cal, and gave me a number. Call when you get close to Elkton. I didn't get a hold of him. I couldn't get a hold of him. That's April 5th. April 7th, I'm almost done with the messages. April 7th, he said, Kelly, this girl is trying to be the death of me or drive me crazy. She smashed my phone on Wednesday when we split up. Wait until I tell you why. I have this Google Pixel 6, but I'm using a Wi-Fi number for now. You can always email me at bobbysteele901@gmail.com. Hope to hear from you soon. So I called him. We went back and forth, like a missed call here through April 8th. April 9th is when he called me at 6:34 p.m. That was Easter. We talked and I talked to him for 2 minutes. And then I came in the house and I told my husband, I've never met my brother. And I know I'm asking a lot, but I'm going to go to pick him up in Elkton because I believe that what he's saying is true. He's terrified. So that's when I went and I picked him up. I brought him home and he was terrified.
So you finally get to where you're together with him and you're bringing him back. And he had been in Maryland, but he wanted to get out of Maryland. And that's why he came up to Delaware. Okay. So did he expand on why he was worried, what was going on, why he felt threatened? Did he talk about any of that while he was, with you during that time?
He did. He talked a lot about it. And when he got in my car, which he was moving from spot to spot, like I went to where he said he was and then couldn't get a hold of him. He's like, I can't stay in the same spot too long. And I was like, oh my gosh, just stay in the same spot so I can get you. So I picked him up finally on a corner a little bit further down. And he didn't have his book bag on him. He had it like thrown around the corner. I'm like, why would you do that? He's like, I didn't want to even have anything on me. Like I didn't want anybody to be able to like have anything weigh me down. Like he wanted to be able to run and out of Dodge if anybody came anywhere near him. So first, like, I'm like, is he crazy? Like, it's been a long time since I've been around him. And so I'm like evaluating what he's saying. And if it was irrational, I was going to just leave it alone. You know, I wasn't going to try and ask too many questions, but he wasn't irrational. He was hungry, really hungry. So I got him something to eat, and it's about a 25-minute drive home. And we just talked, and he said he continuously has tried to break up with this person. He said that she hit him in the head with a log. He said she hacks in, not hacks, I guess, but goes into all of his social media accounts and all of his emails and deletes things. And he's like, I know you think I'm nuts, but I'm not. First, he said she's a cyber genius. I said, she lives in a tent in the woods. She's not a cyber genius. She just knows all of your passwords. Let's be really let's be calm, cool, collected about this. But that's the kind of things that she was doing to him actively whenever they would break up. So when he got here, he was exhausted. He was drained. He was talking in circles a bit about all that. And I said, get in the shower, like calm down, go to bed. So he did. He took a really long shower, and he was so apologetic. He said, I think I'm sorry to my husband like 15 times because he's like, he took a shower in my husband's bathroom. And he's like, I'm so dirty. And it's just like woods dirt. I hate it. He's like, I'll clean your shower. Like, he was just so thankful to be here and to have us welcome into our home. And I couldn't even express himself. So he took a shower, and I did go through his stuff. A lot of people have said, oh, maybe he had this in his book bag or drugs, or you didn't know what he was doing, and blah, blah, blah. I searched every bit of his bag, and I washed all of his clothes. So he did not have any drugs or anything illegal with him when he came to my house, nor do I believe he was on them. I took him upstairs, put him in a bed in our spare room, and he went to sleep, and he slept for like 12 hours and woke up and explained a lot of the situation. It's kind of what I just said with the passcodes thing. He said every time he's attempted to leave, she won't let him. And I tried to get her to elaborate. I'm like, what do you mean won't like let you? And I already said that. My husband's leaving me notes. The change of his messages took over. That was Facebook. I already said that. Like, we'll get back to that. But he just said that they were involved with not great stuff, people. Like, she got him pulled into bad people, and that she has done something really bad. Again, he would not elaborate. Now in the past, like, he admitted she's like stabbed people. These people within Cecil County it's a different. I never knew this place existed to the level, like, with the crime that's going on down there, and how connected it all is. So he got pulled into all of that with her, and I don't claim my brother's an innocent person ever. He's made a lot of mistakes in his life, and I can't sit here today in front of you and say that, like, I know what they were involved in. He could be just as complacent or not at all complacent, but whatever it is that was happening in Maryland at that time, he was terrified of. So terrified that, he came here. But he was torn because he knew that this is Monday. He knew that he was supposed to go to Elkton and try to get this housing voucher signed, but he didn't want to be in Cecil County. So we talked through that for like 2 hours, I think. And I was like, I get it. You want to escape, but that's a housing voucher for the rest of your life. So let's do like a pros and cons list here, like, really, because you don't have to be in the center of Elkton. Maybe we can find you something on the outskirts, but don't give up something that you've worked so hard for that very few people on this earth are ever going to get, and like use that as your platform to be able to go to school and finish the things you want to do in life. But don't just say no because you want out of Cecil County that bad. I probably shouldn't have even given him that advice, honestly. So he decided to go and do it. I just tried. He had a laptop that he was going through, making notes, taking notes on all the things that he felt like were inconsistent that had been happening with, like, his email, his Facebook accounts, all that, because he wanted to be able to have like a running document of the accounts. He needed to have emails. They needed to change like all of his passwords for and everything so that he could go and like limit her access. So he worked on that for several hours, very quietly. Like, he had a really good like second day. My husband really got to know him. There was nothing except for like positivity and looking forward to the future. Really not a whole lot of communication with the outside world. He had the phone, like, and every once in a while he'd be messaging somebody. He did call and talk to somebody who I think is involved, this guy Ed, a couple of times. But at that point in time, I thought Ed was his really good friend. He might still be, I don't know, but that's the only person I know that he spoke to when he was at my house the entire time that he was at my house, other than his counselor, and then trying to like call the Cecil County Health, whatever. So went to bed that night, and Tuesday morning we woke up. That was the day. I'd already arranged for us to have lunch with my aunts and my cousin in Smyrna, Delaware, which is where we lived when we were really young. But he was like, we have to go to Cecil County. I did not know what I was getting myself into agreeing to that situation because we went there and we went to the homeless shelter first, got his counselor, Lou. Lou actually acknowledged that everything my brothers were saying was correct, that he'd been getting the runaround for months. Like the emails were just like not giving him actual steps he needed to do. So that's why Lou got involved and was like, let's go to these places and talk to the nurse practitioner needed to sign it. Then the social services place needed to get it with the signature from the nurse practitioner before it was confirmed. This was not an easy feat. In front of me, they gave him the runaround. They said the nurse doesn't work there anymore. They have to get a new appointment. They have to do this. And every time, if he raised his voice and Lou raised his voice, they just magically, with these documents appeared. Oh, you know what? Here's the one with the nurse practitioner's signature. We just found it. And I worked for like a Capital One. I ran businesses. You know what I mean? Like I know documents don't just turn up signed out of nowhere when you just adamantly stated that you didn't have it and it was like not going to happen, but somebody raises their voice and here it is. It didn't make sense to me. So at the social services place, he met the social service counselor, Amanda. Lou and Amanda and Bobby had a long conversation about how it was done. She provided the rest of the signatures. I mean, if I hadn't have witnessed it all happen, I wouldn't believe that it actually happened. If he was like, trying to tell me this story about how he has this lifetime housing voucher and he went through jumped through these hoops, I would not have believed it, but I watched it. So it was a hard-earned day. Like that, it didn't come easy for him, that housing voucher. And then we went to lunch with my aunts and cousin, came back, he walked out the door and that's it, singing a song, like right off the Ring camera, like he was going to come right back.
So everything seemed good last time you saw him.
Yeah.
He walks out the door. Where was he going? Where did he say he was going when he was leaving?
So I was out on my back deck, actively trying to find him like a Wi-Fi phone plan so that I could get in touch with him, and a hotel room because I was leaving for Georgetown for training in the morning, and I couldn't leave him here with my husband. Like my husband just met him, and I didn't know if Leah was going to come or that lifestyle. Like so, I was going to put him in a hotel room in Claymont, just so he had a place to go. So he never ever had to go to the streets again while I was away. Then he'd come back to stay with me. But he was staying in Delaware until he figured out this housing where he was going to go. It was a great day. But Bobby's also the type that like, he doesn't like to be told what to do very often. And leaving, he thought it was really funny to leave and not tell me he was leaving. He didn't say a peep to me. He saw my husband, like they bumped into each other, and he said, I'll be back, and walked out the door he had his book bag, not all of his stuff, barely half of his stuff. And he was wearing a t-shirt. Now people have asked on my TikTok, why do you keep saying he wore a t-shirt? Because it was April 11th in Delaware. And though it might've been an oddly warm day at that point in time of the day, it gets freezing cold at night. So the fact that he left the house at 5:30 p.m. wearing just a t-shirt and left his heavy sweatshirt and everything here tells me that he intended to be back before it was going to get cold that night. Because if a homeless person knows anything, they know what they're going to need to survive outside at night. And it's not a t-shirt in April.
So at what point did you think, okay, something's wrong? Where is he?
So he called. So I knew he left as soon as he left because my Ring camera. My husband's like, your brother just left. I'm like, he'll be back. Like, no, I didn't even get up to say, hey, where are you going? Because I'm like, he'll be back. I'm like, whatever. So then he didn't come back for 30 minutes or an hour and a half, and I didn't hear from him. And I was so mad at him. About 2 hours later, he calls me again on Facebook Messenger, which means he connected to Wi-Fi somewhere. And I was so angry. I was like, I'm so mad at you. And he was like, ha, 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 how long did it take you to know that I left? And I was like, a second. I have a Ring camera. I got an alert. Like, what are you talking about? And I said, where are you? Where did you go? And he said, as clear as day, as like emphasized, I told you that I was going to meet my boy Courtney on Market Street. And I said, no, you didn't tell me anything. You didn't even tell me that you were leaving. And he said it again, just like that. I told you I was going to meet my boy Courtney on Market Street. And that's when I was like, you did not. You're disrespectful. He's like, I'm not. You are. Now we went right into a typical brother-sister, like back and forth. I said, you're disrespectful. He said, I'm disrespectful. I said, you disrespected my husband. He's like, no, I didn't. And then he's like, that's why I'm video calling you. He wasn't. I was on just my like Facebook audio with him. So I could show you where I am. I told you I was coming to Market Street. And I said, I went back to disrespectful. And then he said, so strangely, so you're telling me you're not effing with me anymore. Like, but he didn't say effing. He said the whole word. And I said, what? No, I didn't say that. And he said, so you're saying you're not effing with me anymore. And I said, just no, Bobby. And I hung up. I don't know if he said that because somebody was listening. I don't know if he said the Courtney and the Market Street and all the things that he absolutely did not tell me before he left my house because he wanted me to know where he was. I don't know why he said he was calling me on video when I was talking to him on Facebook audio. To me, it seems like he wanted somebody that was there to hear exactly what he was saying because that's not what happened. And that's the last time that anybody has seen or heard from him. I thought it was odd, but I also know Bobby's habits. So I wasn't going to be that person that goes right to social media and like says, oh my God, he's missing, or goes to the police. I did reach out to the guy at the homeless shelter, his counselor, the next day. And I said, I don't know where he went. He walks out. Hopefully he comes to you because I know you guys have like steps that need to be like completed for this housing voucher. I sent him a message. Actually, I sent him a message an hour and a half after we hung up that night, just saying, Bobby, I'm not mad at you. Like, it was annoying that you left. He never got it. So whatever happened to him happened like within that, probably right after I hung up on the Facebook thing, because an hour and a half later, he didn't respond to my message. So after that, I kept calling and, FaceTiming, whatever, or Facebook video day after day calling. And it wasn't until I believe April 29th, I put it on Facebook. So 18 days later, less than 3 weeks, I put out that he was gone. I didn't go to the police yet. I just wanted to put the feelers out because everybody that he's friends with, in the Wilmington area, if he was there, I knew somebody would reach out. They'd be looking for him. So a lot of people reached out. Nobody had seen him. Nobody had heard from him. And so on May 2nd, we went to the Delaware State Police, my husband and I, and the officer was very nice at the desk, but he said, because he disappeared from your house, we can't help you. He's like, it's going to have to be Newcastle County. He was like apologetic. He was like, you should honestly really emphasize the fact that he was going to be staying with you. Don't focus on the fact that he had prior to that been homeless in Elkton, because they'll pawn it to Elkton if they think that. So just really stick to the fact that he was with you. He disappeared from your house in Claymont, Delaware, and he was going to be at your residence for some further amount of time. I said, okay. We went home. We called Newcastle County, the non-emergency hotline. An officer called me back within an hour. He said, I don't think this fits the parameters of what we decide as a missing person as far as an adult. And I was like, that doesn't sound right to me, because he has been missing. No one has seen him. It's been weeks. And he's like, let me talk to my supervisor and I'll call you back. So he calls me back. He said, I talked to my supervisor and he's not missing. He's an adult. He can go wherever he wants. And I argued with him. I said, he is missing. He had appointments he was supposed to go to. Nobody on the planet has heard or seen from him. And he had things going on. He's he was homeless. He's been in jail. This happens in this lifestyle. So I was really upset, but I wasn't gaining anything from him, absolutely nothing. So,
did you feel like they were sort of dismissing him because of his lifestyle and his background and stuff?
Yeah. Yep. I sent him that night, the officer, everything that I just read you that my brother sent to me on March 20th. I sent that entire thing to the officer. I said, look, this is what he said, his own words. He was terrified. He said he's going to go missing and other people are. So the fact that the officer, they just deemed it not important or worthy. They said if I couldn't produce a definitive medical condition that he's been diagnosed with that would cause it, something wrong with him medically, or that he was going to harm himself, they couldn't do anything. And I said, he just got granted a housing voucher for depressed homeless people. I think that qualifies as he's got some kind of a diagnosis. And they're like, no, we need to know doctor-wise. And I said, well, have you heard of HIPAA? I don't know. The doctors don't tell me what my brother is specifically diagnosed with, but I'm just telling you, this is out of character. So they wouldn't do anything about it. Absolutely nothing.
Did you have any kind of recourse to go beyond them, or to go back to the state police and try and say, hey, I'm not getting help here. Can you help me in a different way?
So we decided to go to Elkton Police the next day in Maryland, just because he, had been homeless there. And I know that he had a mailing address at the homeless shelter. So I was just hoping that maybe if I went down there, and they know him, they said he was the best homeless person ever, that they would help me. And thankfully they did. They took the report. It was my husband, myself, my cousin who lives in Cecil County, and Lou, the counselor from the homeless shelter, all met me at the police department. They filed the police report. They put him in NCIC. And that was that. They put it out there on their Facebook. They did a whole post, which was great. I felt so supported. Then, people could tell you what you should do. They give you lots of suggestions, all over the place, as soon as something like that is out there. And people started reaching out left and right. I mean, within the first couple of days, and saying you need to get it on the news media. You need to get it here. You need to get it there. And I'm like, well, there has to be more of it, like a store. Like, you have to get it in Delaware. So I just followed what I'm told to do. I called Newcastle County again, and I told them all the details, and I really have been guided to have Delaware pay attention to this as well, because he disappeared from Delaware. Like, it has absolutely nothing to do with Maryland at this point in time, because he disappeared from Delaware. And it was the same officer. And he said, let me get somebody, my supervisor. He says that a higher up supervisor. The guy that called me back, his supervisor, was the most condescending person I've ever spoken with in my entire life. And my stepdad was a police officer. My mom retired from the police department. Like, my son is an attorney. I deal with condescending people, and I know how to deal with law enforcement. You know what I mean? But I've never been spoken to like this man spoke to me about somebody that is missing, and like the fact that I'm a family member just asking for help. He said straight up, well, what do you think I'm supposed to do about it? You filed him missing in Maryland. They put him in NCIC. And I said, well, I did that because your office wouldn't take the police report. I tried with you. He was in Delaware. And it's like he was almost annoyed that it happened in Maryland, but his office refused to do it. So I said, I'm just asking you for guidance. And I said, I'm just a family member that doesn't know what to do. And I literally said to her, I said, just because my brother made bad choices and you might deem him like a degenerate, I'm not. Like, I am just a person that goes to work every day, that's raised a family, and I'm not a scumbucket. So all I'm asking for is your advice to help find my missing brother. And he didn't have any advice for me whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. I was crying. And I said, okay, thanks. And it was terrible.
So this has been how long now since you had that contact with him?
That was May. So I filed in Elkton on May 3rd. Then I reached back out May, I believe 9th, to Newcastle County just to see if they would do anything else with it. And honestly, really what I just wanted was for them, because Delaware State Police and Newcastle County State Police will put like a gold alert or a silver alert on Facebook when somebody is missing. They never give you the reasons why those people get to have the alerts. And I did say that to him. I said, I just want like an alert, like the state police felt like the gold alert. And he was like, well, I don't know anything about the state police gold alert, but he didn't meet the parameters of a missing person here. And it's like, whatever. So then it was filed, then it's all over Facebook, then people see it, they share it, whatever. But I didn't hear anything. And I guess back then in the beginning, you watch a lot of like NCIS and Law and Order Special Victims Unit. You think like you file somebody missing and there's just going to be action on it right away. You're going to hear from people. And that's not the situation. So I called a couple of times the Elkton PD. There were no updates. So finally I went down there on, I think it was June. Wait, what did I file? Oh, by May 23rd, I went down there just to stop in and say, hey, and see if anybody would tell me anything. I had found out little bits and pieces on my own by then, like people that he was with, like people that, I'm sorry, I left out the biggest piece. The day I filed him missing, his ex-girlfriend reached out to me. And that's where it all took off down a different, like crazy land of me learning what's going on down there. She saw that he was missing, sent me a message, and I said, this is serious, Leah. Like, this is not like a joke. He's missing. I filed the police report. And from that day on, she like latched on to me in a way that was, I've never met her. I'd never talked to her. I'd see her from afar. She wanted to search for him. She was desperate. She was heartbroken. She hadn't seen him. She's so sorry for what happened to him. This went on and on and on for a couple of weeks. So at the same time, I was still trying to figure things out, like asking people things, and people are coming like forward with more and more and more information about people, kind of groups and stuff that they were hanging around with and things that happened. So little by little, I would present that to her, and just to see where it would take her, what she would say to me. And at the end of May, I found out a lot of stuff that it's bad, and I presented her with it, and she lost it. She went off the deep end, like not ever to be talked to again from mostly anybody, including her children. She denied everything I was saying, that I was like, no, you were hanging around with these people. This person like did stab people. This person did shoot at the police before, like the really bad people that I was able to connect her to and him through her. And she just went dark, like wouldn't give me that's what we found out. He had a text now number, the detective and I did, but we didn't know the number. Leah refused to even give us the number so that they could try to trace it. Because at this point they're doing subpoenas and warrants and stuff. She wouldn't give us any of the numbers and went off the face of the earth. for a while. Until, I mean, her kids started contacting me in June. I don't know them either, asking if I'd seen her because she was gone. But she's not gone.
So she sort of has dropped out of sight too. Were there any sightings or anyone reporting any interaction with your brother after he left your house?
No.
So nobody has come forward.
One person, well, okay, so there's one person said they thought they saw him at a gas station in Newark. And I'm like, okay, I had my son go because he lived there, near there at the time, go and check. No, it wasn't him. And you would think you would have a lot more of like false reported sites of him, but people know him so much that that's why I believe there's not as many like false reportings, because people know who he is. Then somebody called in an anonymous call to the detective saying that she knew for a fact that he was underneath a bridge in Wilmington, Delaware on 4th Street. So the detective sent the Wilmington police out. I went there. He had friends that go there. My husband called another law enforcement contact. We had people from every angle going to where he was reported to be seen, and it was not him at all. And his ex-girlfriend also from high school, like really good family friends still. One of the things she does with her spare time is she volunteers weekly with the homeless community in Wilmington and Kensington. So she knows like that. So she just talked to them. She feeds them every evening, and no one has seen him in Wilmington, not on the homeless side, not through the drug community, not through the contracting community, not a single person there or Elkton. He hasn't gone to a doctor's appointment. His Google Gmail never pinged anywhere ever again, other than in Philadelphia, the day that she smashed his phone. He wasn't in Philadelphia that I know of. So his phone was smashed. Then it pinged in Philadelphia. That's it. He has no more digital footprint anywhere. Hadn't missed a doctor's appointment in 4 years. Didn't go to his doctor for his Suboxone, which if anybody that has a drug addict family member, if you're on Suboxone, like it's a pretty good deal for you. Like you can't use those drugs. And he had never missed an appointment ever. And he never made it back to another appointment.
So it sounds like a challenge in a couple of ways. One, because, you're sort of dealing with different jurisdictions, one where he was living, one where he disappeared from. The police aren't really cooperating. And, you have somebody whose closest people to him are hard to find themselves, or living out of where it's difficult for them to be talked to or tracked down, it sounds like. What do you do? What do you do in this situation? What do you hope to do to try and find somebody that may hold the answers?
This TikTok, what I'm doing. We discovered through all of the social media posts and, me just spending, I think, every night till 2 or 3 in the morning, like researching and answering people, because I don't ignore one message, whether it's Facebook or TikTok or, whatever. I'll never ignore a message and just discard it as, oh, this is just a crazy person. So I spent a lot of time like listening to what people say. And we learned that, and the detectives know this as well at this point, that Leah, the ex-girlfriend, told a large majority of people in the Cecil County area, and these are people that aren't going to be on Facebook necessarily because they're part of the homeless community, and they're part of the criminal community that's not going to go to the police department and report anything. They all were under the impression that Bobby moved to North Carolina to rebuild his life, to get himself together and like get off of whatever and like live with family in North Carolina. Leah told that to the homeless shelter person, police departments. I can't even tell you how many people have come to me now and said that. And that's not true. There's not even a hint of truth to it because we don't even have any family in North Carolina. Our dad lived there and he passed away in 2020. He did not go there, but she told a ton of people that. So my goal now is just to let people know that's not the case. There is an investigation into his disappearance. He's not with family anywhere. He did walk out of this house with the intent to come back, and he's never been seen or heard from again. Well, whoever he talked to in that span of time is the last person that talked to him and knows his whereabouts. And I want everybody to know his story, because it's not just him. There's several people that this happened to in Cecil County in the past several years, and it continues to happen. And nobody talks about it because it's the homeless community. But now Bobby wasn't homeless, Bobby did have a family that cared. So that's my goal.
Oh, and just for listeners to help paint a better picture here, the area we're talking about. So Cecil County, Maryland is where he had been living. And then he had been in the Claymont, Delaware area when he went missing. How far apart is that?
It's about 16 miles, but Bobby grew up in Delaware. We lived our entire lives in Delaware. He knew Wilmington. Wilmington knew him like everywhere. Claymont's about, well, how many miles from Wilmington? Yeah, 4 or 5 miles. It would take about 2 hours to walk to Market Street, Wilmington from Claymont. But Bobby just knew Delaware because he lived here forever. Cecil County was only the last several years, and that was when whatever happened that he moved there with her. But they're very close. And when you're talking like communities of people that have been in or out of prison or homeless or whatever, there is a network. So there's not as much difference between Cecil County and Wilmington, except for how do I say this? Sometimes people that are from Cecil County, that's all they know. But Bobby wasn't from Cecil County, so he wasn't part of the whole families that have known each other since the beginning of time in Cecil County. He was just a transplant there. A lot of people that live there and are involved there, they don't know. They could go to Wilmington and survive for like an afternoon. So Bobby could, I guess. I'm trying to say it.
So it's not out of the question that he could have wound up back there. It's not like it was, 300 miles away or something. It was pretty local to get back to Cecil County.
He had 9 million ways he could have gotten back to Cecil County in no time, but the detectives have stated, and it's in the reports, that they have no reason to believe at this time that he, one, ever made it back to Maryland, or two, communicated again with the ex. This came out because they were trying to find the phone and like see if she had it, and there's no proof. There's no proof to have warrants issued. So as far as where they stand with that, even though they're investigating it, that's just Elkton kind of doing their own thing. The state prosecutor said they don't have enough evidence to prove that he came back into Maryland. The Maryland State Police say there's no evidence to prove that he came back into Maryland. And that's why they won't take over the investigation, because there's no proof that he made it back to Maryland.
Sounds like a very frustrating situation to not have full cooperation from the police. And then even if you have it, then they've got to go out and track down the people that would have known him that are out on the street. His ex-girlfriend, where she's at and what she has to say. It sounds like all of that stuff would still need to be done, and then it might not even lead to the answers you're looking for.
They didn't need to do it. I did that. I gave them all of that. Like, I gave them every detail and every contact, and over the course of like the 2 months, like that after he disappeared, it's not hard to find information on people. You know what I mean? Like, it's really not. It's hard to get information from Meta and Google and banks and doctors' offices, because though they have the information, they can't legally give it to you. But in the scheme of things, as far as trying to track the person down, I mean, find who they talked to, who they knew. People love to talk. So I gave the police so much to follow that I don't know. I don't know where the investigation stands. I don't know why Maryland or Elkton is investigating it if he didn't disappear from there. And if the state prosecutor's office and the Maryland State Police have deemed that there's not enough to do any criminal warrants or investigation, like criminal. So the investigation is just Elkton doing their thing.
So, and just specifically, I guess, as it relates to somebody that might be in the homeless community, do you go out like to homeless shelters, handing out flyers or talking to people there? I mean, what is the process when you're dealing with like the homeless community of trying to track down people that might know something?
So I have been to the homeless shelter that his mail was sent through, and met with multiple times, and met with his counselor there, who assured me that he was in contact with the rest of the homeless community, because he's a counselor, but his role is like the homeless outreach program. So he's the one who goes trekking out in the woods, trying to find people to bring them back, to make sure that they have food and stuff. So he's very connected, but also through in Delaware. Okay, so let me get through Maryland. Yeah. It's a very small community. So through his counselor Lou, and through myself and my cousin, the community, and contacting on Facebook and things like that, I believe the bulk of those there, the community, homeless community, and the shelters they use do know everything. But Cecil County is really, really tiny too. It's tiny, but if you're not from Cecil County, it's hard to get the word out. Hence, everyone thinking he was in North Carolina. So for all that time was missing because that community didn't know, but they do know now. Because once I realized that, that's when I realized I have to be a little bit more aggressive as far as contacting. In my old world of not knowing about missing people, I just assumed like if the Elkton Police Department put something on Facebook, the Elkton Police Department let everybody in Elkton know, because that's what would happen. And I learned it's not what happens. Like, you really have to do it yourself. You have to be involved. So that's kind of where the TikTok came from, and the reaching out to you and anybody that I can, Carl Hamilton from the Cecil Wig, to try to help me get his story out. Because there's only so much flyers will do, and there's only so much social media will do if you are a person that doesn't have social media. But it took 9 months to get any of that, to get the ball rolling.
And because, he disappeared, and where he was living, where he might have gone back to, and where he vanished from, it's across state lines. Is there any hope of getting the FBI involved in a search for him?
So I told you my son's an attorney. He's got family in the FBI, that his aunt and his uncle are both in the FBI. And so I had him reach out unofficially. Can't do anything officially, just ask for advice. I mean, because that's what I thought, cross state lines, it's clear he left here, they're investigating there. And she said the same thing that the attorney said, the state attorney said, we don't have any, if there's no proof that he crossed back into Maryland, then there's no way that the FBI can be brought in, because Delaware is, I don't know what, they just don't want to do anything about it. And Maryland doesn't have any proof that he came back in. So that's where I think my most frustration comes from, because I'm like, how did Elkton even have the okay to do any kind of an investigation, send out subpoenas, if the state prosecutor is like, no, he wasn't here? And why won't Delaware say, hey, we'll take over? I don't know. Hopefully, maybe I'll have answers soon, because I have to send an email to the state senator and the state representative for my district. Somebody that my son knows them very well. She works with them, and they're very interested in the story. This just happened in the past couple of days. So maybe with their help, Delaware might decide to look into it or become a little more interested, because it's really sad, and it just doesn't even make our state look good that they just don't care.
Well, I feel like if this was a young, well-to-do person that went out and disappeared, they'd be pulling out all the stops. But when you hear it's somebody that's homeless, they have a history of some kind with drugs or some kind of criminal record, it's just oh, we're not going to break our backs to try and find that person.
Yeah, I think Delaware doesn't want to mess around with it because he spent so much time in Maryland. Maryland saying he didn't go back there. Ironically, though, the detective filed his report with NamUs, however you want to pronounce it, for in case they find a body. And she filed it, and she filed that he was reported, that he was last seen and disappeared from, I believe, Maryland. She also, I think she said that, didn't she? And she said he went to Market Street for fact and didn't meet anybody there, but she never talked to the person that he was supposed to meet on Market Street. So it's a very not, the detective work isn't very, I feel like it's here and there, it's an all over the place thing, and it has not produced any answers. So I think
I was just gonna say, the thing I don't understand is, how can they say so clearly that he never went back to Maryland if they don't know where he's at? How do you know he didn't if you have no idea where he's at? So
that's what I said. I'm like, this is the craziest thing. But you don't look a good gift horse in the mouth. If the Elkton detective, Candace, is going to be the only person for whatever reason
to do something,
to do anything, then it's you take what you can get while you can get it, and then you take every little bit of information you find on your own, or you get from them, and you, I guess, create a timeline, a bigger case, and a bigger maybe presentation to give to the next person that's going to look at it. 40,000 people have looked at it on TikTok, so I mean, it's people care.
Yeah, and there was one thing I did want to clear up, because I had read in one of the articles that he was last captured on surveillance camera footage at 5:58 p.m. Was that your home security camera footage you were talking about that he was captured on?
Yeah.
Any chance of finding him on anybody else's stores or anything in the community?
The police won't ask. So if the police and the state won't ask these these businesses, they're not going to give it to me. My neighborhood knows, but he took off. He went. We don't know which way. We have no idea. The police won't help find out where he logged into Wi-Fi. again, the detective said subpoena is not warrant. So a subpoena is just asking nicely versus saying, you have to do this for me. So Google gave her limited information, but everything she said, the records from Google, the records from bank accounts he had, the records for subscriptions that he had, and even purchases that were made after he disappeared, all lead to nothing that is criminally wrong, but it's still under investigation. Meaning he has not logged in anywhere, email, and nothing. There's been no sign of him anywhere or any of his accounts or any of his anything used since he walked out of here. But Delaware will investigate. So getting like businesses to show their cameras, they won't.
It seems like the big clue, the thing that jumped out at me is that last time you spoke to him, he was specifically saying, I'm at so-and-so's house in, where was it again?
Market Street. It's a street in
Market
Wilmington.
Street.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's a very specific name and a very specific location. That seems like it would be a clue worth checking out, tracking that person down and seeing what they have to say. But until
I
they,
did.
okay, you were able to locate that person yourself. Okay,
Absolutely. And I spoke to that person, and that person said that they had not talked to Bobby that day, did not have plans to meet Bobby that day, had last heard from him between the 7th and the 9th in April before I picked him up. And he said that he was going to be coming to Wilmington to this person because he was going to hopefully be coming to my house. I didn't think anything really I really didn't even put two and two together with him saying it twice until like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. It was like one of those aha moments. I had reported it's in the police report, but didn't hit me that maybe he said it first to let me know where he was versus like, I don't know, he just said it. But the person that said he was going to meet since have found out a lot about that person. That person is not a great person either. Bobby worked for him for a long time. He basically owns slum houses, and he hires prisoners out when they get out of jail and they can't get other jobs to work underneath work under the table and just bad conditions. So that's who he said he was going to meet. He owned some Liberty Taxes, but then Liberty Tax sued him this year in Delaware, and he lost, and so they declared bankruptcy. This person, he has a business partner in Maryland who also was served time, and her husband for soliciting people online for sexual favors and then robbing them. So that's his business partner. So this guy's bad news.
you think that would at least be, it's one thing for you to track them down and talk to them, but it's another thing for the police to officially investigate and question this person formally. And until something like that happens, it seems like it's not going to go anywhere.
So I like to go back and read things sometimes because I have so many conversations that you sometimes forget like the timelines and things. So last week I went back through, and to my aunt, I read out loud like everything, all the emails from the detective and the communication that I had. And the very, very beginning, the detective, after she heard my story, she asked me for this person's name, full name, asked me if I had their contact information. I provided her with this person's contact information, and everything my brother had to say about this person. When I called her about a month and a half ago and said, it just really hit me, or no, I emailed her, I'm sorry, that he said it so adamantly twice. Like maybe he was saying it for a reason. Like maybe we need to look harder into this person. And she's like, you never expressed concern to me about anybody named Courtney before. This is literally an email. Like, can you please provide his contact information so I can reach out to him? And I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay. And I provided it again, but she didn't even remember to have it documented that I gave her all this information at the beginning of the investigation and the fact that I was concerned.
Hmm. Yeah, that's not that's disheartening to hear that somebody's saying you never gave them anything, and you're like, here, I've got it in black and white. What kind of investigation is actually going on? That's frightening. So I guess to wrap up here is, what can listeners do to help you reach more people, to maybe generate tips or leads or something that's going to help figure out where your brother is? What would you like to tell listeners what they can do to help?
Listen, I hate to say it, go on the TikTok and look at it and hear his story, but I mean, it tells a little bit more of his story, but just keep your eyes and ears open always, because there are a lot, I'm not kidding, of people disappearing. In the past 10 years in Cecil County, or in Maryland, that area, Baltimore County, Cecil County, 37 people have been entered into NamUs. 34 in the past 5 years alone. Like not missing, entered into NamUs. So like that means that they're presumed that they're probably not coming back. In one very small area, there have been 3 in Delaware. My brother's one of them, to compare. So there's a problem. I mean, people his same age range. Chris Dietrich, he disappeared in 2019. Howard was talking to his sister, left the same homeless shelter, and never was seen or heard from again. Never saw his children again. His whole family. They got a little bit of air. The police took their story, but they never even posted on Facebook. So like the sister fought long and hard and had an article published, but that was it. He just disappeared. Another person a few years before that, same MO. 9 months later, his body was found in the same spot that they searched like before that. And same type of background. This guy was out of rehab and clean and working, and nobody knows why this keeps happening there. But it's not getting bigger news. And that's the problem. That's what I want. I want people to listen and think and do your own research, because it's there in black and white. I'm sick by the things that I've discovered just trying to figure out where my brother might possibly be. And I never wanted to be like the go-to person to try and solve this mystery, but the families that reach out to me, it's devastating. And if I can be a bigger voice for them, then I'll do that as well, because there is something happening down there. And I don't know how long, I don't know where there is, I just know in Cecil County, that's too many people that have disappeared with absolutely no answers. And he disappeared from here, but he had been spending years in Cecil County. So that's why I say that. So just report everything you see. Don't be scared. Anonymously if you need to. Let's just stop, because it can literally, it could be anybody's brother. Because if it can be mine, it can be yours. Like, and it's until you go through it, you can have empathy for people. Like, I empathize with a lot of people. I hear stories, I cry, but until you're actually the one going through it, and really the only one. My husband's by my side, he supports me, but he can't, he does it. The feeling is so overwhelming that, and just, it's like despair, because you don't have an answer, and somebody out there has an answer. Somebody knows, and they won't tell you. So just be vigilant with it, and don't let it happen to your loved ones.
And hopefully somebody out there listening, if they have any information, they'll come forward. And you mentioned the TikTok. I'll link to that in the show notes so people can find that. But do you have any other social media pages, websites, anything else where we can direct people to find out more about the case or share information?
They can reach out to me on TikTok. They can reach out to my Facebook. You can link in my email address if you'd like. Anybody that's seen the Elkton missing persons thing from the police department knows my address, because the detective put my actual address on it. So that's out there in the world. So I don't mind my email address. Bobby has a lot of Facebook accounts, like Bobby Steele, like 4 or 5, 6 different ones. I post on there as well. Anytime I post anything that new or updated, I post on all of his pages, just to make sure that anybody that might be linked into him there can see it. And it's a hashtag find Bobby Steele on TikTok.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely share those things in the show notes, and then people can click on them and find information, share it on social media or whatever. But
can I say one more thing, though?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. The reporter that just published a story in the Cecil Whig, his name is Carl Hamilton. He's been writing for the Cecil Whig as like a senior reporter for I don't even know how many years. He said he never didn't understand how it didn't come across his desk, because this is what he does. But that didn't come across his desk until a couple months ago when my cousin emailed him. He's been trying since then to get a statement in cooperation from the Elkton Police Department. And his words to myself and to my aunt, because she talked to him as well, are, I've never gotten the runaround from the police department for a missing persons case like this before. So I am 100% sure that it's because it's part of something bigger, right? So that I don't know what that bigger is, and I don't know how they have the okay to investigate it. But he said he's never gotten the runaround. He's never gotten that feeling before. So I asked him just to publish it, but only just say, Bobby's still missing. You know what I mean? Don't give any... Don't ruffle feathers where you don't need to. I'm ruffling enough over here. But he said, like, never in his history of dealing with them has he ever gotten no answers, to the point that he had to go there in person before he could publish the story. So I just thought that was an interesting fact, because it's a reporter that writes on all the crime in Elkton.
It just makes the case even that much more puzzling.
That's a good word for it.
Well, again, we'll do our part to share the story, and I hope you do find out what happened to Bobby.
Hey, thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, please contact the appropriate authorities.
If you enjoy this podcast, please take a moment to tell your friends about Missing Persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will help us grow and bring these cases to a larger audience. You can also help us by taking a moment to rate and review Missing Persons on the platform you're listening to us now on. Just a reminder that new episodes of Missing Persons air every other Saturday. If you want to find us on social media, we're on Facebook at facebook.com/missingpersonspod. We're also on Twitter with the handle @missing_pod. And of course, you can find us and contact us through our website, missingpersonspodcast.com. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.